righty. So welcome everybody to the first episode of the WhitsEnd podcast. I'm Whitman McGee. I'm your host. Today I'm joined by a amazing first guest. You can't get much better. New Orleans Saints legend, 2018 Saints Hall of Famer, Lance Moore. First of all, I want to thank Scott Vignair Law, Injury Lawyers, and DraftKings for kind of putting this on, Boot Crew Media, the good people that we work with here, and obviously Lance himself for coming on and taking the time out of his day and schedule to just kind of answer some questions. So kind of to start, Lance, it's a tough time for Saints fans. It's been kind of rough lately, and it's easy to look at, the negatives. So I kind of wanted to just reminisce a little bit on kind of your career and those great Saints offenses, all-time offenses. Kind of starting off, let's just talk about ways in which you think you could compare those offenses to the one you see today. Obviously, Pete Carmichael's still here. You played with him for a little while. So what do you see in terms of similarities?
Well, I think with similarities, obviously they are running a version. I wouldn't say it's exactly the same offense that we ran back then because it's kind of changed and evolved a little bit over time. But you can watch the game and see some similar concepts, some similar things that they're doing as far as personnel groupings and shifts and motions and things like that. I can watch a game and be like, oh, that was such and such play. And it just comes right back to me. But it's like, I always try to do this just so people kind of get a better understanding of what's going on now compared to what happened back then. It's not just as simple as, hey, they're running that great offense, they should be great at it, right? Like, we had Drew Brees. Like that's where it starts. Like he is a, wherever you want to rank him, minimally a top 10 quarterback of all time.
Exactly.
Right? So being able to have him be our quarterback, and then obviously the quarterback for the organization for so many years, we were so extremely spoiled that now that's the expectation. That's not a bad thing, right? It's not a bad thing that the expectation is that greatness, that every single week that we go out, we can put up 35, 40 points, or every single week we have a chance to win because we're not only running this great offense and we have great players, but by the way, we have Drew Brees at quarterback.
Exactly.
Now, I'm not taking a shot at Derek Carr, but I don't think anybody would say that he's an all-time great quarterback. I don't think anybody would say he's a top 10 all-time quarterback. So expecting Drew's greatness from him is really and it's pretty delusional. Like, you're not going to get Drew Brees out of Derek Carr because guess what? There's only one Drew Brees, right? Exactly. And we had him for 16 years in New Orleans. So like, everybody should be thanking their lucky stars that he was our guy. Yes. Now, I'm not saying that people need to change their expectation. I just think they need to be a little more realistic with what they're expecting and hoping for and wanting from Derek Carr being the quarterback. Right. I think he can play better. I think there are things that he's kind of doing that we haven't seen a lot of as far as the Saints offense goes. But I feel like it's like a new relationship, right? Like he's feeling his way into this thing. Like it's going to take a little bit of time. And unfortunately, there's no way to do it. Like, there's no way to expedite the process. You can have as many reps as you want in the offseason. You can do say all of the right things. But when it comes down to it, if you and your receivers aren't on the same page in a game, there's no way to fix that expeditiously. Like, you just need time and reps and more communication. Like, that's how you get on the same page. And I know I kind of went on a tangent, but similarities, I think another similarity that I see is the skill group.
Right.
They've got some guys now. Like, this isn't the Saints offense from, a couple of years ago when everybody's like, man, Michael Thomas is the only receiver that we have. Like, not only has he come back and been balling, like, people were like writing him off and saying he's not going to be able to come back and be the same guy. Like, I knew just based on his personality, how he works, and from conversations that I've had with people in that building, that if he was healthy, he was going to come back and not just be productive, but be one of the better guys on the team, which he's proven that every single week. Like, they throw him the ball, he's catching the ball, he's making plays. Like, that's what we expect of him. But then you add to him Rashid Shaheed, Chris Olave, runner-up to Rookie of the Year. I mean, Rashid Shaheed is a electric play waiting to happen every single time he touches it. The tight end group, AK, Jamal Williams, Kendre. I mean, we've got skill galore.
Right.
So that's something that, and I would say, they've got bigger names than we had at the receiver position back then for sure.
Right.
But we had a lot of guys that could make plays, and any given week, it could be any of our days.
Right.
That's a similarity that I see. What else? The offensive line has kind of struggled. We were blessed and fortunate to be able to have a great offensive line all those years. I mean, multiple Pro Bowlers I think we had 4 Pro Bowlers the year we won the Super Bowl, which is crazy.
Yes.
On our starting offensive line. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's different. It's not the same. And that doesn't mean that they can't get to a certain level where, they're showing up on game days and they're going crazy offensively and we're scoring a bunch of like I don't think that that's impossible. I think it's possible. I just think that it might take a little bit of time for us to see, a 450-yard game, 45 points. Like
right.
It's tough. It's hard to do that. And I think people, including us in that offense all those years ago, especially the 2011 season, you kind of take it for granted. Like, you show up and the offense is going to lead the way and things are different, right? Like back then the offense we had to carry the load. In the last several years, it's been the defense. And we've had really, really good defenses the last several years. And the reality is most teams don't have great groups on both sides, and it's just being able to play balanced football or complementary football as far as what your offense and defense are doing. And then you add in your special teams. And I don't think it's a crisis situation. I mean, as tough as that game was to watch for 3 quarters last week and us, I guess losing 3 out of our last 4 games. I mean, it's not a crisis situation. We're 3-4. We're 1 game back in the division. Like and we play the first place team 2 times. You know what I mean? So this isn't like a situation where we need to bring the garbage bag or the trash bags out. Like that's the brown bags, I should say. It's not that type of situation. I think there's definitely, some positives in it, and I'm looking forward to see where they go from here.
Right. I think you touched on like some amazing points there in terms of like, it's really tough. Like, I think one of the things Saints fans have really kind of come to terms with is how blessed we were to have Drew Brees, right? As easy as it is to say that. Like, even Drew, towards the end of his career, latter half of his career, with the injuries that he suffered, I think we really took for granted just how fortunate we were, like you were speaking on, of having a guy like him. And you talk about the wide receiver groups. I think the comparison that you made was like spectacular because we've got these big names and we've got guys who are solidifying themselves, guys like Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed. And then we talk about Michael Thomas, who is making a resurgence. I think it's one of those deals, like you were saying, as to like, what is our expectations? And we might need to temper them a little bit. And it's like, you talked a little bit too about just the off season, right? And it's easy to look at, OTAs and training camp and the positives that are going on there and just set high expectations. But so like looking at Derek Carr, let's take an evaluation of him so far throughout the season. If you had to just give him an overall evaluation and like try and find some like particular spots in his game where you would say, hey, this is where I would improve, where would you kind of pinpoint that?
I mean, that's the first thing that comes to my mind is I wouldn't be reacting or responding the way that he did a couple of times last week, and he's done it throughout this season. That to me is a bad look.
Right.
I don't know him personally. I've watched him over the years, and I know he plays with passion and he's got his heart on his sleeve and everything like that. That to me is something that he's got to improve, and I'm sure he's addressed it enough times already going into this week. The fact that he can't do that, right? Like you can show emotion in a way that doesn't, belittle or show somebody up or really throw somebody under the bus. Like that to me is an important thing that goes along with camaraderie and chemistry and trust and love, right? Like we knew when we showed up on Sundays, not only did we love Drew, but Drew loved us, and he would show it by how he communicated with us and how we meshed on the field. Like that is important. And anytime you have those demonstrative displays, it's not necessarily your guys seeing it that makes it bad, right? Like, of course you see it, you're like, damn. But the fans, the media who sees that's going to make it, and I guess we're guilty of it as well. We're going to make it a bigger deal, and he's going to have to answer for that. And not only is he going to have to answer for that, but his teammates, including those wide receivers, tight ends, running backs, etc., are going to have to answer for it as well. And that's just something that is just, that to me is not a good look. And hopefully they get that figured out. Hopefully there's some conversations being had behind closed doors where he's like, you know what, my bad, I got to be better. Like, that's just, I don't want to operate like that. It was a heat of the moment situation, and all good. But I think that's got to happen. Something else that I noticed with him, and we keep going back to this last game because it was the one that just happened, is just not hanging in there and going through his progression and kind of checking it down a little bit early in situations where there's, in my opinion, there's more meat on the bone. Understandably, he's got a shoulder issue, and maybe it's a situation where he's like, look, if I get the ball out of my hands and avoid getting hit, then so be it. But if you're going to be on the field at quarterback, you're going to have to get hit.
Exactly.
That's part of the job. Like, you've got to hang in there. You've got to be a little more patient at times. I mean, because look, getting the ball to Alvin is not a bad idea. It's never a bad idea. But I do think that there's opportunity down the field more times than not in those situations if he just hangs in there. And then look to his defense too. The offensive line has not been the greatest.
Right.
So with that kind of, those two factors, right? People kind of getting in his face a little earlier than expected, and the shoulder issue, that could be the reason why he's getting the ball out of his hands, and he looks a little antsy from time to time. Right. But I think that, Pete Carmichael has gotten a lot of flack for the play calling and all these different things, but the guys in the game got to execute. Right. And that starts with the quarterback. Like, he's got to be able to do what is out there for him. Right. And without forcing it. Every now and again, a quarterback's going to try to force something. I get that. But, just the quick check downs, to me, especially situationally, if it's a third and 14, and you're checking it down and the guy's getting 6 yards, that cannot be what we want. And that's definitely not why Pete's calling the plays that he calls. And he's going to get the flag. Oh, why did he call that play? Why did we get 6 yards? We didn't throw the ball down the field. Well, the quarterback's the one pulling the trigger. So, those are kind of the two things that I see that I think he can get better on. I mean, he's made some good plays. He's made some great throws. There looks to have been a somewhat of a resurgence as far as the vertical passing game goes, throwing the ball down the field. I'd like to see more of it, man. And we've got the guys. We've got guys that can run. We got a guy that can work the middle. We've got tight ends that can get open. I mean, I think we can see a lot more versatility in this offense. But like I said, it starts with the play caller and the quarterback. If they have the ability to get those things called and run, then this offense could be scary, scary good.
Right. Doing that evaluation just of Derek Carr, and it's easy to look at guys like, obviously we're going to take a look at Carr. Like you said, I mean, the quarterback's going to catch some flack. Carmichael's getting a lot of flack as well. I also wanted to kind of gauge your opinion, obviously as a former receiver, just of, like, we kind of touched on it a little bit, but we've seen Thomas, we've seen Michael Thomas, we've seen Olave, we've seen Shaheed, we've seen what they've been able to do as a unit. If you had to grade them in terms of just A to F scale, where would you rank the way that these receivers have been able to perform given their circumstances?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the end part, given their circumstances. That to me is that's the most important thing. And I think this is an grade A group for sure. Just with the versatility, the ability, the big plays, the chops. I mean, Mike T has been around the block. He's not going to be scared of any single moment. The explosiveness of Shaheed and Olave. I still think both of those two young guys are a little raw. I think with time they'll develop even more and be even better, which is kind of scary to think about because they're both so good already. I think they're an A group. And it's hard when there's growing pains with the offensive line and the quarterback. It's, I would say they probably performed at a B level, maybe. but they've got a ability for sure, and that's a unit thing. Like they've all got to be able to gel and be cohesive, and because the receivers can't get off the way that they want to if there's no protection,
Right.
and there's the quarterback's checking it down, every other play. Like so, I think that it's shoot. I mean, if all things are going well, I think it could be one of the best groups in the NFL. Honestly, like
100%.
just based on what the ability and what they can do and what they've shown and what they've proven they can do.
Right.
It's just unfortunate that the way that the season has kind of started. But I remember the days of going into a game plan meeting with myself and Marcus Colston and Devery Henderson and Robert Meacham, and just looking at the game plan and being like, it could be any of our day. Like
Right.
any one of us is going to have 100 yards or in multiple. Usually, we usually had 2 or 3 guys that had over 100 yards in games. So I feel like this group is similar. Adding Taysom, adding Juwan Johnson, Jimmy Graham. I mean, we've got some dudes now, and I think that the best is yet to come. I guess that's an A group, but the best is yet to come with this group.
Got you. I think that's like well said in terms of like looking at y'all's top, like the receivers of one of the best, I would say, pretty inarguably the best offenses that the Saints have ever had. And you're looking at the cohesiveness that you've talked about and going in. And I think that was such a great point in terms of like, you can go in and look at, man, this could be my day. This could be Colston's day. This could be et cetera, et cetera. I think that shows the cohesiveness. And I think like what you were touching on is just the, like, have they really had that opportunity to gel yet? And I don't personally, I don't really know. So what do you think about, like you talk about y'all's relationship just as a wide receiver room, feeling like a family, feeling like y'all had that leader in Breeze? What needs to be done, like in terms of this season, to kind of unlock that to the best of the ability? Like obviously you see some Saints fans calling for the firing of Pete Carmichael. I think that could be, I mean, it's a little bit of an overshot as of right now, and getting rid of Carr, obviously like that's not going to happen. But what in terms of this season that would be like achievable can be done to unlock just a better form of chemistry with these receivers, with Carr, Kamara, just the entire offense?
Well, my name is not Pete Carmichael, nor is it Dennis Allen or Mickey Loomis. So
Right.
honestly, I can't give you an answer as to what needs to happen. For whatever reason, back in the day, and I always lead with Drew Brees because that is the ultimate variable, right? Mm-hmm. Like he had a way of, and look, I've been to Saints practices. Like it's not like these guys hate each other. It's not like they don't ever talk to each other, right? It's just, I'm not in that huddle. I'm not in those meeting rooms. So I don't know the dialogue. I don't know the communication. I don't know if they're watching film together. Honestly, I don't know what's going on around there. So I can't give you a perfect answer. I could just give you examples of what, things that we did. Like we met together, we watched film together before and after practice. The communication, the dialogue was always ongoing. And that's before a drill, that's after a drill, that's during a specific period. The next play is supposed to be coming, but hold on, wait, I'm talking to him about the last play. Like, so that, I don't know if that's going on, right? I'm not there every single day, but I think that's important to building the chemistry and being able to get on the same page. Hey, what did you see on that play? Right. Okay, that's great. Okay, this is what I saw. Let's try it again. I mean, those are things that we used to do. And then it was, getting the extra reps after practice. I'm sure they're getting some of them, but I think that was a big part of us being able to be successful on Sundays. Was obviously we got the work in when we were supposed to, but we also got extra work in after, right. And that I think that's a big trust building thing as well. And I don't know. I don't have, like I said, I don't have the perfect answer, and that's way above my pay grade, right. But I'm like you, and I hope that whatever it is that needs to get done gets done, so that these guys can definitely maximize their potential. Because I do think this can be one of the better offenses in the NFL.
I completely agree too. I think just looking at the talent we have and the guys we've already evaluated, and even some of the guys we haven't talked about, like Taysom Hill, them balling out, throwing him at tight end and just using him in different areas. Obviously, we've seen him for the past half decade now, which is crazy to think, just play so well for us. And I think that speaks to his game. That speaks to how much time he's putting in. And I just think you're right on with that. I think we definitely need to see some of that camaraderie kind of build up, and that comes with time. I think that's why the Saints were quick and easy to give Derek Carr that contract in the offseason. It's not like we're going to give him a year and get rid of him. It's a building process, and we still got these veterans who are in the midst of their primes. Like you look at your Lattimores, your Ramcheks, these guys who you're not ready to give up on yet, right? Like it's not time to rebuild. So we're still shooting to be that team that could be a sneaky sleeper type team. And sitting at 3-4, it's a little bit tough to like look all the way towards the playoffs, right? Like we don't really know. It's still early, but we've kind of talked about some ways this offense can improve, and we've seen the defense too. I don't want to just forget about the defense, but obviously as a former offensive player yourself, that's a focus. What, like, in terms of the players that you're seeing today, we've talked about them already, but who are you keeping your eye on for the rest of the season as the Saints try to make it back into that playoff push, which they're not out of, as you touched on earlier? Who do you think into like stepping up? Who are you looking at? Like, are you looking at the Olaves, Shaheeds, Kamara, who's come back, taken a leadership role, played extremely well? Who are some of those guys?
Dude, it's got to be Derek Carr.
Right.
It's like, I mean, I could say any other guy, but it wouldn't like even come close to the impact that Derek Carr playing consistently well will have on this team.
Exactly.
Right? I mean, I feel like everybody's got to play better. Like you can't watch a single film and be like, you know what, I played this perfect. I played perfect. Like I've never in my life watched a game and been like, I was perfect. Give me 100%. Like ever, right? And you've got to be overly critical of yourself when you watch the film, right? You got to be honest and you've got to be critical. So with that, I just think that it starts and ends with him. Like he's got to be the guy. My eye is on him. He's the one making the most money, right? Like we don't talk about that. He's making the most money out of everybody. Yeah. So if he's not playing well, we don't have a chance. I mean, I was at the game last week and there was people in the press box calling for Jameis Winston, right? And I mean, shoot, I was in there like, I mean, I wouldn't be mad, you know. Give us a different look. A guy that's not going to be scared back there, that's for sure. You know what I mean? Like, so he's got to play better. That's the guy that I'm watching. That's the guy that everybody's going to be watching, but that's definitely the guy that I'm saying has to play way better for us to be able to achieve what I think is possible with this team. That's where I'm at. I think defensively, other than Carl Granderson, everybody's kind of underachieved. DeMario going out there last week on a bum leg is warrior type stuff. Like seeing him play with that knee brace and just not being able to move like himself all the time and staying in there and making plays was impressive. Cam Jordan I think has his highest rush win rate in the last several years this season. It just hasn't materialized in the sacks. Granderson has been the best player by far on defense. We've seen flashes from Marshawn and Alante. I think our safeties have to play better. We need more splash plays from those guys. Pete Warner, he's got to show up. He was a turnover machine last year. He's got to turn into that this year. I think Paulson Adebo has so much potential. He's got to play better. You got to stop holding. You got to trust your technique. That's what's been happening with him a lot this season. I think 3-4 is a good place for this team to be, considering all the things that we've had to deal with, right? And you can look at it like, hey, man, not only are we 3-4, but we could have easily been 1-6, or on the flip side, change a couple plays here and there, we could be a 6-1 team and still not played our best football. That's the thing that's the most encouraging to me. We're still in an okay position with 10 games to go, and we have not played our best ball yet. That is encouraging. Like that tells me there is still a chance and opportunity for this team to achieve some great things.
Right. And I think another thing to that is the fact you talk about how many games we have left, 10 games, and our schedule is favorable, right? I mean, obviously that's subjective, but I do think that there are most definitely tougher schedules, and we're in the bottom half in terms of just difficulty of schedule. It comes down to the ability to just come together, gel as a unit. You talked about the defense. The defense has been put in a position to where they have had to be on the field more than they should. I think we can both agree on that. And that falls into offense's hands too. And that's why they've taken just so much slack. It's because this defense is getting tired and they're getting beat up. And you talk about Demario Davis. I think every Saints fan and the NFL fan base in general is starting to finally like really give – the Saints fans have been doing it. But he's finally getting his flowers. And it's respectable because this dude's been busting his tail for us for years. He has just been one of the best in the league. Obviously, as he kind of enters that age of where he's getting closer to retirement, it's good that he's getting that those looks too. And you know, we have those type of dogs on defense. You talk about Granderson getting his payday here recently, which I think was a super favorable deal for the Saints personally. And it was a smart job by Loomis too, right? To take him up now and, you know, not wait until the end of the season where he was going to get a big hefty payday from somewhere else. But kind of feeding in from that to your career, you know, we talk about these receivers today and y'all's receiver groups. What were some of your favorite moments just as a unit? You know, whenever you went out there, you felt like you were warriors just ready to hit that battlefield. What were what's your favorite moments that you can recount and recall on of just as a unit and a wide receiver group?
Honestly, some of my favorite moments weren't football moments. Like, we used to do receiver dinners every week, and you know, I get goosebumps thinking about it because those are the things that you really can't replicate when you're done playing. Like, right. and we were so fortunate to have the same group of guys. I think Devery, Meach, Colston, and myself, I think we played together for 6 years, 5 or 6 years all together, which is really unheard of for the group of guys to, you know, the receiver group or any position really to be able to play together for so long. Right. And that to me, like the receiver dinners, the travel, the meeting room. I mean, we always had a good time. Those were some of the greatest moments for me, especially as a retired guy. Now, if I was still playing, I'd probably have a different answer. But as I look back and reflect more and more on, you know, the past and the, you know, the career that I had, now being out 8 seasons, you know, of course you miss scoring touchdowns and celebrating with your guys and, you know, kicking a defense's butt. But that is just, to me, it doesn't compare to the moments that you have as a family, as a group. You know, right. we genuinely loved each other. We liked spending time together. And that to me is probably some of the best moments that I had as a group, for sure.
Right. And, you know, another thing I kind of wanted to touch on, just like speaking about that group, and I think just the chemistry that built up, you talked about it just being a little, it's unheard of. It really is. There's not many times where you can look and see wide receiver groups that stay together for half a decade or more, and just like being able to build that chemistry off the field as well, which I think goes back to our points earlier on just having to build up that chemistry. So another thing I kind of wanted to touch on was one of my favorite personal moments kind of growing up, of you and the group. Obviously your dances, man, your personality. So I kind of wanted to just ask, and this falls more league wide. You know, you had your Hingle McCringleberry dance. You know, that's my personal favorite, one of my favorite Saints moments of all time. So I look at like the personality you were able to show on the field, and just in general back in, you know, just 5-10 years ago compared to now. Do you think the league is in a healthy place when it comes to just like the celebrations and just being able to show character on the field? Or do you think there's still like some kind of areas that need to be kind of patched and allowed for like a little more freedom? What do you think about that?
Look, I think the celebration game is in a great place. I'm jealous that I wasn't in the league in a time when you could have choreographed dances with your teammates and not get fined, because that's what we used to do. Like, I love it. I'm all for it. And I'm like a huge fan of people being able to express themselves, because you work your entire life to be able to get to the NFL. And so why can't we celebrate when we get to the end zone with our teammates? They're the ones that help us get there, right? Like, sure, when I used to dance, it was just me and like, cool, like the attention is on me. But I would have preferred to have been able to do things with my teammates. I mean, I think that's a cool thing. And I think the NFL definitely has gotten that one right, while they still there's other things that we could get into at a different time that I'm like, what are they doing? Like, why is this still a thing? I think the celebration thing is great, and it gives fans an opportunity to see a little bit more out of a player than what they get regularly.
Right.
And again, I mean, like you work your entire life to get to the NFL. And that was one thing that I told myself. Like, I was a guy in high school, I would score touchdowns and I would do like this airplane thing off the field or whatever. And it used to piss people off, but I was like, man, like, who cares? Like, I scored a touchdown. Like, this is my way of celebrating. And and so I always told myself, if I make it to the NFL, I'm going to dance. And then it didn't hurt me at all coming into the Saints in 2005. And Joe Horn was the leading receiver back then. And of course, he was super personality. He's going to celebrate. He's going to dance. He did the cell phone thing. So I also had somebody else to kind of learn from as I was coming up in the ranks.
Right. I think that's it is interesting to see it. Like, you just see all it's culture at the end of the day, right? Like, and what you're talking about, just the fact that you can push so hard, work so hard in all these different levels, high school, college, you make it to the league, right? And I think I do think the league's in a healthy place too. Obviously there's limits, like some things you just can't do without getting fined, but like the choreographed dances and stuff like that, it is cool to see. And kind of like using that and moving forward a little bit with your dances, that was one way you kind of connected with the fan base, your personality. What are some of your favorite memories with the Saints fan base, with the people in New Orleans? It's clear, like, just being involved with Boot Crew and just staying around New Orleans, that New Orleans has that special pull to you and to many others. What are some of those like specific memories that you can remember about just the fan base in general?
Yeah, just any time that I was out and about, to be honest with you. Like,
right.
it's I always try to explain it to people or articulate it in a way that they will understand, but you would never understand if you're not from there, or you haven't been there, or you're not a Saints fan. It honestly feels like a family. Like, everywhere you go, people welcome you with open arms. They're loving, they're caring. What can I do for you type of situation. And I've played in other places with great fan bases, the Cleveland Browns, the Detroit Lions, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like, they're great. The fan bases are amazing. And specifically with the Lions and the Browns, who haven't had winners in a long time. Now they're playing well now, but it's just different. There's a different feel. There's a different energy. And you feel like as a player, you want to play well, specifically, obviously for obvious reasons, right? I've got a contract. I've got to play well for my teammates, the coaches, and everybody. But you don't want to let the Who Dat Nation down, honestly, because you feel like they are a part of this huddle that we're in. They're a part of this group. They're a part of this win or this loss. And as a fan base, you couldn't ask for anything greater than the love and the care and the respect and the admiration and just the feel that you get from Saints fans.
Right. And I you hear that sentiment echoed when it comes to just New Orleans in general. You hear it with some Pelicans players, Saints players talking about. I know specifically, like, looking at CJ McCollum with the Pelicans. I know, like, as soon as he got there, like, he is already calling it home. So I think that feel that you're talking about, it's just, there's something special about New Orleans. And I think it's really cool that, just post-career, seeing how involved you are and just like being such a voice for the Saints and putting yourself out there. It's just really cool to see. And I know the fans feel the same way. Kind of on that as well, what, as of right now, would you say your involvement level is with the Saints organization? Like, how often are you kind of finding yourself there for practices and stuff? And would you like to see yourself in the future maybe more involved in coaching or just being around that, or are those days kind of
well, I'm not involved at all, right? Like, if I'm in town, I'll pop over. I'll text somebody and say, hey, I'm in town. Is it cool if I come watch practice? Or I'd love to see everybody. That's kind of where I'm at with it. I live in San Diego, so I'm not in New Orleans regularly. And then as far as like the coaching goes, no, I don't. Like, I train young wide receivers, kind of group or individual sessions from time to time. The last several years, besides this year, I was a combine wide receiver coach for a group out here in San Diego. I would train guys to prepare them for their on-field work at the combine or their pro days. But as far as like coaching, I don't really have any interest in it because of the time commitment. I've got young kids and a wife, and I love them and I want to see them, and committing to that type of life is not for everybody. And it's definitely one that's not for me. I just couldn't see myself being gone before they wake up and coming home after they're all asleep. That just is not the life that I want. But I do feel like I've got, coaching to be able to give, and I'll continue to train young kids from time to time. But my focus is on being an agent, man. Like I've looked the last 8 years for ways to be able to positively impact the game, as well as the young players that are coming up. And I'm like, well, what better way would there be than to be able to represent guys, and not just on a contractual basis, right? Like to me, it's not just about getting the guys the best deal. While that's important, I think it's kind of leaning on my experience as a former player to be more of a mentor, and help guide guys both pre, during, and post career. Because I've lived in all three of those different levels of life as far as an NFL career goes, and that to me is kind of what moves and motivates me today, and trying to not just be another agent. I want to be one of the best ones out.
Right. So kind of touching on just becoming an agent, which is super cool. I think the story in general is just awesome. Like you see, like after post career, right? It's tough because that love for the game is still there. So you see a lot of players getting into announcing, stuff like that, being involved in media sources and stuff, which you've done as well. Like being an agent, what exactly in that field, I think you kind of touched on it a bit with just that personability and being able to give your knowledge out. But what is it about just being an agent that hypes you up, that pumps you up, makes you want to get up out of bed and just help out the next guy in their career and give your knowledge? What kind of got you into that originally? Is there a specific person or source? What kind of brought that idea to your head?
Well, I had a great relationship with my former agent. And coincidentally, I'm working with him now. So I'm at the agency that I was represented by my entire career. It's called Sports Stars. And honestly, I was looking for a way to stay involved and connected to the game and lean on my expertise as a former player to find what it was that I was going to be doing career-wise moving forward. And it's honestly like the best of all the worlds. Now, I'm a rookie in the space, but I'm not a rookie in the knowledge, if that makes sense, right? So, it allows me to stay home. I'll work remote, right? I'll do a little bit of traveling. I'll have to do some recruiting. I'll have to go see some games and things like that, and shake hands and do all the things that you would expect from an agent. But it allows me the flexibility as a dad, as a husband. So it just was kind of like the perfect world. Because I did dabble in the coaching. I'm still working in the media space today while, doing the agent work. And I even dabbled in scouting a little bit because I was like, hey, I think I have a pretty good eye for talent. I think I could be good at this. But the reality was I wasn't moving back to New Orleans, you know? So in order to be in San Diego and be a scout, I would have to be an area scout, which means I'm on the road 60% of the year. That was just not going to happen. So, this was kind of, it feels right to me. And I'm excited about it. I'm currently talking to a couple of guys, and it's fun. Like I'm learning on the fly, and I've got a great mentor in my former agent, Dave Butts. And, we're kind of working in tandem, and if he can't get a guy on the phone, I'm gonna try to get a guy on the phone. I mean, it's work, but it's very, very satisfying work. And like I said, I'm not doing it just to have a job or to say that I was an agent. Like I'm motivated to be one of the best ones out there for sure.
Right. I think that, like I said, it's just such a cool thing to see, because you see that passion that you have for the game and wanting to keep that going, whilst also obviously like you have those family values, as a lot of people, like you'll see those values, but it's really hard to kind of connect those, and you kind of finding the way to connect those dots, stay close to home while also finding avenues to stay involved with the game is just super cool. And I think, like you're talking about, just being an agent, giving that knowledge of how you're doing that to these players is just such a cool thing. But kind of with the last couple questions for you, I kind of wanted to touch a little bit on, so we talked about current Saints, a little bit of the past too. Let's look a little bit towards the future and like what we're seeing with wide receivers in general in the league, the evolution of a receiver. And just wide receiver rooms in general. How do you think, what have you seen? What's the difference from today and 10 years ago in terms of like that you've seen in training and just development overall? Is it faster? Are there like significant changes that you've seen?
Yeah, I actually think that the game is in a better place. The guys that are coming out generally are further along these days than guys in the past. I think because it's a pass happy world, right? Like there's 7-on-7s. There's all these different ways that kids are getting the skill development earlier than we were back in the day. Like I remember back in my day, now 20 plus years ago, in high school, we would have 3 or 4 7-on-7s with our high school team per summer. And that was it. Like now there's flag football, there's 7-on-7 camps, there's all these different avenues for kids to be able to get that skill development. And you're seeing it as the young guys come to the league. They seem to be pro ready. And I think a lot of that has to do with, kind of where offenses are. I mean, it's a lot more spread offenses, wide open, 3 and 4 receivers on the field, and the quarterback is chucking it. I mean, that is cool to watch as a former guy. And I love it. I watch games and I'm like, I don't want them to run the ball at all. I understand why you need to, but I mean, it is fun to watch the quarterback just sit back there and sling it and get the ball to his playmakers. And I love it. I think the wide receiver position is in a great place. I think that, like I said, that being able to develop sooner is getting guys more prepared as they get older and eventually make their way to the NFL.
Exactly. I think that, when you're looking at receivers and like just the evolution in general, I think you're exactly right. Like you just see how important receivers have obviously always been an important aspect of the game, but you just see the development. And I think you hit on it exactly. Obviously, like how quick these guys are getting into the groove. Like Olave last year with like you said, runner up to rookie of the year, over 1,000 yards, even in a season where it was kind of like, what's going on with the quarterback position? What's going on here and here and here? Being able to see that just from rookies and young guys, it's definitely impressive. But kind of overall, just thank you so much for coming out, for just chatting with me with this first episode of the WhitsEnd podcast. We're just blessed to be able to have you on, and super thankful for what you're doing in the community and just staying involved. Obviously, I think I speak for most, if not all, Saints fans. Like, we love you, man. Your personality is eccentric, and just being able to go back, especially in times like this when we're kind of struggling a little bit, and go back to those offenses and watching those clips, and those are memories we'll have forever. So I just thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for what you're doing for the community. And obviously we wish you luck in your career and in your pursuits, man. We're just glad that you're involved.
For sure, man. Thank you for having me. And of course, anything for the home team.
Thank you so much, man.